The development of the GIT. In this first lecture, I am going to discuss is the development of the anterior abdominal wall. So what is important before starting with this lecture is that you should have the knowledge of your general embryology, how the different folds they are formed. So that is very important. So what is happening during the fold formation is that there is progressive increase in the size of embryonic disc. It happens. So you can see in diagram A, so XY is indicating the axis of the fetus. So the growth is happening head and tail end, however they remain close to each other. They are very close to each other when the folding it starts. So increase in the length causes the bulging upward into the amniotic cavity. So in diagram C you can see this. So these diagrams are taken from your standard textbooks. With further enlargement of this embryonic disc, so the embryonic disc it becomes folded on itself at the head and tail end, called as head and tail folds. So similarly the lateral folds are formed on each side, so that is important. So what it results into, that is, it results the embryo is enclosed all around by ectoderm except in the region through which the vitalo-intestinal duct is passing. So you can see in the diagram. So this is basically ectoderm, which is enclosing the whole of the developing embryo except in the region where the vitalo-intestinal duct is passing. So with the formation of the head and tail end parts, the yolk sac becomes enclosed within the embryo. So this is the primitive gut basically, from which most of the GIT is derived. So gastrointestinal tract is derived from this primitive gut, which is enclosed in the covering of the ectoderm, and outer is the ectoderm, and the endodermal folding is basically going to develop the GIT. So at first it is in wide communication with the yolk sac. You can see in the diagram. Later on the narrowing of that is happening with the folding of the embryo. So that is vitalo-intestinal duct is there, and which results into the formation of definitive yolk sac. So cranial to the communication of this vitalo-intestinal duct to the gut portion, so that forms the foregut. Caudal to this communication, the hindgut is there, and intervening part is known as midgut. So this is the knowledge which you must be knowing from your general embryology knowledge, you can say. So how the different foldings they are happening, how the gut is enclosed, and how which portion is known as foregut, which is the midgut, which is the hindgut, and what are the different arteries of these three guts. That is, for foregut it is the celiac artery, for midgut it is the superior mesenteric artery, and for the hindgut is the inferior mesenteric artery. So this is the basic knowledge. Now yolk sac becomes small and inconspicuous and is now termed as definitive yolk sac. So narrow channel connecting it to the gut is called as vitalo-intestinal duct. So this is the you can say basic structure which you should know before starting with the development of the GIT. Now what are the sequences of you can say the sequence of events which are happening in the anterior abdominal wall formation. So before that I would like to discuss two problems with you, because keeping in mind those problems you can reach the diagnosis when we will discuss the development of the anterior abdominal wall. So you can reach the diagnosis how the anatomical basis of that embryological defect is related to it. So a child is born to large defect lateral to the umbilicus. Most of the large and small bowel protrude through the defect and are not covered by amnion. But so question is, what is the embryological basis of the defect? Second problem is which we can have in our mind is, suppose a 27-year-old primigravida presented with 19 weeks of amenorrhea in an obstetric clinic. Her routine antenatal ultrasound revealed an abdominal swelling enclosed in a membrane with herniation of liver and intestinal lobe. So we will discuss these problems after the discussion of the development of the anterior abdominal wall. Now these are the sequence of events which are happening in the development of this wall. That embryonic disc, it increases in size, number one. Then second is folding of the disc, it occurs resulting into the formation of head and tail folds, which are called as cephalocaudal folding or cephalocaudal folding. Now the lateral folds, as I have told you, so the lateral part, you can say, fold ventrally and they fuse with each other to form the anterior abdominal wall. So cranial and caudal end, they are folding, then lateral folds, they fold with each other to form the anterior abdominal wall. The lateral folds are formed due to the rapidly growing somites. So right and left folds rolls anteriorly from the sides, reducing the yolk sac. You can see in the diagram. Again, the diagram is taken from your standard textbook. You can see or you can appreciate so how the basically yolk sac is reduced to its size, reaching to the definitive yolk sac formation. So from all around, that is anterior, posterior, and from lateral side, that is enclosed by these folds which are just developing. Now the part of the yolk sac enclosed within the embryo forms the primitive gut, as I have told you earlier. So rest of the yolk sac, it forms the definitive yolk sac. Now the germ layers of either side, they meet and fuse. So germ layers, we know basically there are three germ layers: ecto, endo, and mesoderm. So they just meet as the folding is happening. They are meeting with each other on either side. So ectoderm of left side meets the ectoderm of right side, forming the continuous surface of the embryo, which we call it as anterior thoracic and abdominal wall. The mesodermal and endodermal layers, they also meet. Endoderms derm form a tube called as primitive gut between buccopharyngeal membrane and cloacal membrane. So that we have discussed that how the primitive gut is enclosed into these two layers, that is mesoderm and ectoderm. As a result of this folding, the embryo has a tube within a tube, basically. So outer tube is ectoderm, inner tube is endoderm. So in between, the gap is filled by mesoderm, and that in that mesoderm, the coeloms, they are formed. We call it as early body cavities, which is known as coelom. So that is formed. Now, keeping in mind the development of the abdominal wall, anterior abdominal wall, we will discuss the defects. So what are these abdominal wall defects basically? It is an opening in the abdomen through which the various abdominal organs, they can protrude. So basically two main types are there, that is Omphalocele and Gastroschisis. You can have a picture. This is Omphalocele. The abdominal viscera is herniating into the base of umbilicus. And this is Gastroschisis. So this is a picture showing the Gastroschisis and Omphalocele. Now first we will discuss the Omphalocele or exoemphalos, exemphalos or Omphalocele. So opening in the center of abdominal wall where the umbilical cord meets the abdomen. Organs, typically the intestine, stomach and liver, they protrude through the opening into the umbilical cord. Then, and organs are covered by the same protective membrane. So what is that protective membrane is made up of? So that protective membrane, it includes a covering. What are those? Amnion, Wharton's jelly and inner lining of parietal peritoneum. So this is important in this. You can see the diagram, same diagram is showing. Now frequently this anomaly have multiple birth defects such as congenital heart defects. They are associated with Omphalocele or and that basically defect is covered by a covering which is known as amnion or another covering, that is Wharton's jelly and inner lining of parietal peritoneum. So keep in this thing in your mind. During development, midgut forms a loop which grows rapidly and intraembryonic coelom is too small to accommodate it. So this is the developmental process. So initially, intraembryonic coelom is not accommodating the growing midgut loop. So what is happening next? A part of loop is extruded into the extraembryonic coelom in the umbilical cord itself, forming the physiological hernia. So basically this hernia is temporary. So with passage of time, the loops, they return to the abdominal cavity, so the defect is covered. But if the persistence of the extrusion of the midgut loop in the umbilical cord, it persists, at birth it is called as umbilical hernia or exomphalos or Omphalocele. So this anomaly, it happens when there is no option for the midgut loop to return to the abdominal cavity. Now such fetuses with omphaloceles, they may grow slowly before birth intrauterine growth retardation, it happens, and they may be born prematurely. So this is the condition which can result into this. Now next condition is the gastroschisis. So what is this? This is a defect in the abdominal wall, usually to the right of the umbilical cord. So that was in the center. The omphalocele was in the center of the umbilical cord. But here what is important is normally it is right to the umbilical cord, through which the large and small intestine they protrude. The protruding organs are not covered by amnion, means they are not covered by any membrane. What we have discussed in omphalocele is that it was covered by a covering membrane which includes the amnion, Wharton's jelly and parietal peritoneum. So once the intestines they are open, so they are susceptible to damage due to direct contact with the amniotic fluid in the womb. So what happened next? That some pathological process it starts. The component of the amniotic fluid may trigger the immune responses and inflammatory reactions against the intestine that can damage the tissue. So after birth, what is seen? That these intestinal malformation can lead to the problems with digestive functions, further loss of intestinal tissue, and a condition is called as short bowel syndrome. So this is gastroschisis. What we have seen in this, that usually the defect is on the right of umbilical cord, where the umbilical cord is attached. So defect in the abdominal wall is just right to it. And second important thing which we have discussed in gastroschisis is that it is not covered by amnion. The protruding organs, they are not covered by amnion. And third important thing what we have seen in this is that major portion which is protruding, or mainly the large and small intestine, they come out, not the other organs. So that is important in this. So failure of fusion of two lateral folds, not covered by amnion. So that is gastroschisis. So these are the key words which you should keep in mind. Now coming to the problem, I think you can give answer to this problem. A child is born to large defect lateral to the umbilicus. Most of the large and small bowel they protrude through the defect and are not covered by amnion. So what is the embryological basis of the defect? So here what is important? This lateral to the umbilicus, not covered by amnion. So the defect is gastroschisis. So this is second problem. A 27-year-old primary gravida presented with 19 weeks of amenorrhea in an obstetric clinic. Her routine antenatal ultrasound revealed an abdominal swelling enclosed in a membrane with herniation of liver and intestinal loop. You can see in this. So what is the membrane? Here which membrane is discussed? That is amnion. So this is important. So what will be your diagnosis? Omphalocele. It is clear from this. It is enclosed in a membrane and herniation of the liver and intestinal loop is there. I told you in gastroschisis, those are the intestinal lobes which are coming. So this is all about the development of the anterior abdominal wall. So thank you very much.